Fuck yeah, and we're going. So, thank you guys for doing this. This is fucking awesome. And, I'd just like to give a little intro and then let you guys tell your story, because I think you guys have a fascinating story. But today's guests are Rachael and Mike Novak. They're good friends of mine. We've been kicking it pretty hard for, a year now? Yeah. They're part of the tribe, as you guys are, if you guys have heard about plenty of times. But they're just winners. They have a good mentality, and they know how to put the work in. But, everybody always says, you got to put the work in. But there's more to it than that. And for me, watching your guys' journey, I'm only catching the tail end of it. But what's fascinating is you've risen and fallen and then risen again. And I think that is the story that motivates people, because if you just put your mind at something and then you win, you get people saying the whole, it must be nice thing.
Oh, yeah. We're so lucky.
Yeah, you're lucky. It worked out for you. Well, it did, and then it didn't, and then it did again. So it's not coincidence now. Now we're talking about a formula that works. And I think it's cool because you guys are a couple that crushes all different aspects of life together. But this podcast, as you know, it's a lot of fighters and jiu-jitsu guys and military people. But it's cool to have an opportunity to sit down with a couple people more from like the corporate side that are able to put together a formula that wins. And I'm fascinated to listen to you guys tell your story. So thank you. Welcome. Thanks
so much for having us. This is awesome. They do life and business.
So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, just a little background, who you are, where you came from, and then we just take it from there and have fun with it.
So Mike Novak, how far back do you want to go?
To the day you came out of your mother's...
But let's be honest, we had a fall and then a rise and then another fall, and now you're seeing our second rise together.
Okay. So. Well, then take us back to there then, because I don't care about your high school experience and shit like that.
Yeah, we met after high school. It's all good.
We met after high school.
Yeah. Your life started the day you met Rachael, so let's start there.
So I was a real estate developer, grew up in a building family. My dad's built a couple thousand houses, and that was kind of, what I grew up in. I was framing houses during the summer and kind of learning construction from the ground up. And then right out of high school, wanted to get into land development and building at a pretty large scale. I was super aggressive and driven, but maybe aggressive and driven to a point of stupidity, just because, super green, don't know what you don't know kind of thing. Launched a building company in 2003, and we built it pretty big, pretty fast. We were building about $25 million of homes a year.
How old were you when this was happening?
I was 18, 19, 20.
18 when he launched the company.
Wow.
18 when we launched it.
Straight out of senior year.
Yeah.
So how does that even happen, though? You're an 18-year-old snot-nosed kid, and then a year later, you're building $25 million worth of houses?
So, I would say, and you can speak to this, but, his grandma, steered him right in regards to just, finances. I think it was only, you could buy a lot for $5,000 right then. So it was, you're not talking hundreds of thousands just for land acquisition at that point, right? This is...
Yeah, there was certain mentors in my life as a teenager, that really influenced my decision to want to be in business for myself. I've never worked for anybody else my entire life, and I really wanted to go down that entrepreneurial path. And the first path that I wanted to experience was building and developing, which, turned out to be a scary as shit business and risky as hell, as we all discovered in 2008. But Rachael and I met in 2005. I had a office manager / bookkeeper, and one day Rachael was in there. She was talking to her friend, and I walked by and I just said, "Holy shit! I need to learn more about that." And so
I need to learn everything about that.
Yeah, I went deep on that one. But she played hard to get. She got rid of me a few times, but I'm not a fucking quitter. So third time, it actually worked out, and we ended up getting married in 2008. Anything you want to add to that on the meeting?
I would say it was for sure love at first sight for both of us, but I was dead set on marrying a gentleman, and he was a super successful, savage builder making way too much money at way too young of an age, and I was not about that ego at all. So I was like, once you shape up, you learn how to open my door for me, come on back, give me a call.
I think most men, at least most men that we would consider like tribe men, right? Like all the guys that we are in our circle are kind of similar. When you're a young man, you have to go through that very egotistical phase and figure out who you are, but more importantly, who you aren't. And I think if you don't go through that phase at early 20s, those are probably the guys that go through that phase sometime in their 40s.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
Yep.
Yeah, that's how you have a midlife crisis, basically, if you don't experience that earlier on. So in 2008, you know, we had a lot of real estate holdings. We owned a really nice, well, actually a couple nice really homes. And then, you know, in September, I don't know how much you remember about that, but Lehman Brothers went bankrupt one weekend, and the following Monday the entire financial markets were locked. Like, you know, getting any kind of line of credit was done. Lending standards basically just stopped overnight. The secondary market that provides liquidity to the primary market was just done. Nobody was buying any mortgages, and when mortgages stopped being bought on the secondary market, then it really bogs things down. Like, if you haven't seen The Big Short, The Big Short does a great job of explaining this kind of dynamic that occurred in 2008. So all the projects we had going on at the time were basically just dead in their tracks. All these local banks that loaned us millions and millions of dollars were in super deep shit, and we were basically guessing every Friday which banks can get shut down this weekend. It was a really scary time. The FDIC would roll into town. You know, they took over Horizon Bank, Frontier Bank, some of these big construction lending banks took over all their assets, and Monday morning they sold it off to somebody else, and they called most of their construction loans right then and there. So it was a shit situation. We ended up going bankrupt and losing, you know, $7 million in our early 20s out of it.
Wow. And so, like, you went bankrupt and just walked away, basically?
We were fucked. Like, there was nothing we could do. I mean, I'm not an easy quitter. I tried every way to refinance properties we had into hard money loans, into just friends, private equity people. Nobody wanted to loan any money that had it because they had no idea what was about to happen. Like, everyone was just so scared. I haven't seen that level of terror in the financial markets in my life, and I hope I never see that again.
Yeah. I mean, it was so, like, we have friends that were in such bad positions that they unfortunately made, like, really, like, life-altering decisions, like leaving families, committing suicide, like, just leaving town. We saw, like, the worst of the worst, right, on that side of
I always say, like, financial stress, in my opinion, might be the worst kind of stress that there is. Because it's 24/7. It's like a backpack that you're carrying around that's just loaded down with bricks, and you can't drop your ruck. There's nothing you can do to shake that. Because, I mean, we've went through some hard times as well, not to that extent, but when you are wondering if you're going to be able to feed your kids and pay your mortgage, you can't turn that off.
Right.
And that's a stress that just sinks its claws in deeper and deeper and deeper.
So that same fall, right, that was September 2008, and then October 2008 is when we finally just filed for bankruptcy, because we knew, like, this is a pit we are not clawing out of, right? We found out we were pregnant with our number one. We had just gotten married 3 months prior. So it was a heavy time. A year before that, he and I had gone out on this little pet project that we had gotten the owner to finance a very small little restaurant. And so he and I had just kind of kept it like ancillary, like it's kind of running itself. It's not really making any money, but how cool is it to say we're restaurant owners, right? That's kind of like
basically a free place to go eat and drink.
Yeah, literally. Like we could
That's
go
why I started a Jiu-Jitsu Academy, right?
yeah, like eat and drink for free, right? Basically. So, you know, we were able to work with the bankruptcy attorney, and we were able to keep that company and like maintain that LLC. And so that's what we just immediately pivoted, both of us, and threw ourselves 150% into restaurant. Like we became bartenders, cooks. Like we learned everything there was to know about restaurant financials, how to run a restaurant, how to segregate like the positions, how to write manuals for each position, and just threw ourselves completely into it. So that was over the next decade, essentially, or 9 years. That's what we focused on, was building the restaurant company.
So when that happened, then you weren't able to like reverse your stakes and all the shit that you can do now?
No.
I didn't have time for any of that. It was just pure survival mode at that point. Like in 2008, like we briefly considered like moving somewhere else. Like I was looking at different like project management roles and even financial sector roles and things like that. Like it's just things I'd experience in. And then we looked around, we're like, you know, we have this one restaurant. Why not lean into this and see what we can do with it? And that's
where was it at again?
In Linden, Washington.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what kind of restaurant was it?
At the time, it was like a little pizza place.
Okay.
So like it had like this really pathetic menu with like red and white checkered table. Like it was, the concept was a nightmare, right? Yeah. But the body of it, the TI, right, the tenant improvements that had been done in this space, that's basically what we bought. It was really well done. So we were like, well, let's start updating, and we love food and we love to drink. So like let's just literally throw ourselves into it and evolve the concept into what we like and what the market's going to like. And sure enough, like even though the entire financial market and the housing market totally collapsed, our business went way up, because that's still one of the things that people will spend money on in a recession, is spoiling themselves going out to eat and going out for drinks. Yeah. Right. And so,
which makes sense, because if you're in a recession, there's a lot of stress around the other parts of your life, and that's an opportunity to kind of de-stress.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's almost like a little, reprieve from the disaster going on around you. So, and you could see people taking that out, healthy or unhealthy, with booze and pizza and everything else. You know, all those things that make you immediately satisfied.
Well, it's kind of similar to like what happened to me with the gym over the last 24 months. So many stresses outside of the gym in people's day-to-day lives is that it actually encouraged a lot of people, or motivated a lot of people to start training.
Yeah.
You know? Yep. And so it's...
Well, especially being one of the only ones that was open and saying like, hey, fuck you, Washington State, basically, right?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Yeah, I'm going to still run this business, because this is what's going to help people mentally, physically, emotionally through this kind of time, not sitting at home watching TV and all that. So.
And are you going to fucking pay my bills?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right,
that's what's bizarre to me about this whole thing. I mean, I don't want to go down too much of a tangent, because I talk about this all the time, but it's like, I can't fucking wrap my head around how people just said, yes, I'll shut my business down, I'll lose everything, I'll go bankrupt, and I won't fight back. Right. And I've come to the conclusion now, if you lost your shit, that's your fault. You know?
We're friends with the guy that owns Bruno's Pizza in Lake Stevens. Super good guy. And he was really respectful the first time they shut down the restaurants, because we all didn't know. We thought that we're all going to die, basically, and we were believing what we were being sold.
Yep.
And then he laid off his whole staff, and then he brought them back when they said you can open up. And then they said, you got to shut down again. He said, no, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to put all my staff out of work again just because you say I need to do that. And everyone, the whole community rallied around him, And
it's cool that there are a lot of states took a lot of enforcement action, like New York and New Jersey, California. But Washington was just a lot of empty threats.
Totally.
Which is good, right?
It's great. I'm
glad. It's weak leadership is what it is. You have a complete pussy at the top of our state, and he just tries to intimidate people. And if people just listen to what he says, they're scared out of their mind. But if you challenge it, nothing's actually happening.
Nope, nothing's happening. Right. And so, but, it's funny how there's like a dichotomy to everything. And when you guys are talking about the market crashing and everybody losing everything, that was a year and a half later or so is when we bought our house in California. Mm-hmm. And so, and I almost felt bad about this, because the person that we bought it from paid like $500 for it. And so when I was looking for a house, I just pulled up Redfin or whatever the Google search was, and I was looking for anything that wasn't a short sale, because at the time, the short sale process was actually longer.
Yep.
Yeah, it took forever to close.
Yeah, and I had a family to move down, right? Yep. And so I found one house out of everywhere in the Inland Empire where, I don't know what the person did, but they could afford to take the hit. And so they said, hey, we bought it for $500, but we're willing to sell it for $180.
Damn.
What? And I was like... To this day, I'm like, if I ever hit the Mega Millions, I'm going to go find them and be like, this has been fucking eating at my soul for 15
the last 20 years.
Like,
it sucks, but honestly, like you said, like if you lost your business with COVID, then it's your fault, and that was all our fault too. Like we were way over leveraged. We didn't build the business the right way. Those are hard-learned lessons. Yeah. But we could have weathered that storm if we would have been more strategic about it, if we would have set ourselves up and thought that could happen, even though there's no signs that it was going to happen. So
yeah.
And I mean, and I don't understand this world at all, but doesn't history repeat itself? Like there are cycles that happen, and at some point, can you expect this to happen again?
I don't think 2008 will happen again.
Okay.
I think to give the government credit, I do think that some of the reforms they put in place after 2008 were actually really good. And they got rid of the toxic loans. Like, it's illegal to do a lot of the loan products that resulted in the outcome of 2008 and that collapse. Like the liar loans where you can just say, hey, I make $200,000 a year and I'm a bartender that works 10 hours a week.
And no one's
Nobody
checking
checked
this.
anything.
And
Yep.
like the old liar loan, like you can't do that shit anymore.
Stated income loan is
so
what those are
there's a
called.
lot more stability to the mortgage market going on now, and all of those things are illegal. And lenders used to do predatory things, like they would tuck in on page 120 of your loan documents, and you go to sign that if you sell your house within the first year of having that mortgage, you owe them like $25,000.
Yeah.
And so things like that are now illegal, which is good.
Dude, I mean, I bought 3 houses now, and that 120 page document that your what do they call it? Notaries come out
Yeah.
and go through, and I'm just like, probably like everybody else, I'm like, I don't want to fucking read anything.
Yeah.
Just show me where to sign.
Yeah.
But that's also, you don't know what you're getting into either. But I couldn't sit there and read 120 fucking pages. Some people do it, I hear.
Yeah.
You guys
Oh,
have
yeah.
probably experienced
I'd say
that
like
before.
2 to 5% of our clients
Yeah,
want
super high C's, read them all.
want
but-
to read every page.
yeah.
They want it a week in advance so that they can highlight and ask questions about specific paragraphs and all that. Yeah.
If
Not
I
many,
was going to
though.
get a mortgage again, I would probably read everything in the document.
Would you really?
Yes. I don't trust banks. I mean, we're like literally shooting this in a mortgage office right now, but I don't trust banks at all. Like, I just saw what they did in 08 and I don't trust them.
So what is different? Because houses are ridiculously priced right now. Mm-hmm. And to people that don't understand what's happening, I'm drawing some like similarities. You know the little neighborhood right across from the gym on Highway 92? Mm-hmm. Sheely and I were looking at houses yesterday because he still wants to buy. And so there was a house in there for $800 and something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That neighborhood's not much different than Crosswater.
No, that's a D.R. Horton community, I believe. Like, a lot of those were sold for mid 400s,
Yep.
So how is that not going to end badly if these houses are starting to be what I mean, like I said, a self-admitted moron when it comes to this, but it seems dramatically overpriced.
I don't think that there's no arguing that prices have escalated quickly in our market and nationally as well. But when you look at the underlying factors to the market, there is no toxic lending going on like there was in 08. So I don't think it's going to be anything like that. And it's inventory driven. Like, if you look at data statistics of 2008 and this market right here where we live in Snohomish County, there was about an 8-month inventory supply of homes before we went into the recession. Meaning, if no other homes came on the market after today, it would take 8 months to sell every single house that's out there right now. Currently in Snohomish County, we have a 5-day inventory supply of houses.
Okay, so completely different.
It's
set of
completely different.
circumstances.
And
Yeah,
it's
so different.
literally supply and demand. When there's no supply and there's demand, prices go up.
Yeah.
When supply starts rising, that's when prices will stabilize. But we have a super desirable area and we're massively underbuilt too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we have been since 2008, and that's what's creating all the demand.
It's just strange to me because I think about like what profession would you have to be in to buy an $800,000-$900,000 house in just a regular middle class neighborhood? Like,
I mean,
are doctors and lawyers and stuff moving
In our
into
area, we are like the
It's Amazon.
epicenter
Is
of
it Microsoft?
Amazon,
Yeah.
Microsoft,
Just a bunch
Facebook
of big
headquarters,
tech money.
Expedia.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Tons of tech money.
and like because I was telling Brian, I was like, dude, you haven't pulled the trigger on anything. Why don't you just look in my neighborhood just to get a house?
To start building equity. Yeah.
Park your car in and have a place to lay your head down at night. And it's the first time I've ever seen that. I pulled up the map of Crosswater. 0 houses for sale in Crosswater right now.
Yeah. When they're on, they get multiple offers and they're gone.
And when I saw that house for $800, I was like, well, what could we get for ours now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, if I could get $800, I could almost move back into the fucking gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say we kind of skipped ahead, so people may or may not know that we're in real estate now.
Oh, yeah.
We did own restaurants. We got out of the restaurant industry in 2017.
I want to go a little deeper into the restaurant industry, though.
Okay.
So you had the one place up in Linden.
Yep.
And then you revamped it, you started turning it around, and it started becoming successful. At what point did you say, okay, let's do this, let's open up multiple locations, and kind of what direction did you take when you decided to do that?
So the company was only doing about $300,000 in revenues when we bought it, and once we had kind of rebranded it and adjusted the menu and made it profitable and kind of hit all of our KPIs, we got the revenue up to about $500,000 or $600,000. That's when we said, okay, we're ready to do the second one, and that took a year. To get it there. It wasn't very long.
And it was also, like, honestly, by the grace of, like, timing and relationships, like, we're definitely big believers in, like, maintaining relationships across all platforms and not burning bridges anywhere, unless that person is truly shitty, then fuck you, right? But, like,
yeah, of course.
So in this case, this was a buddy who owns a lot of real estate in Whatcom County. He owns commercial. He was a developer. He's a licensed real estate agent. And he had several businesses that went dark in a couple of his commercial buildings. And so he basically said, hey, like, we've got this space. It's already got a kitchen. You just need a build out, right? And so he was he gave us a great deal on the space because of the economy. He was able to front us, the money that we were going to then be paying back to build that space out. So it was really, it gave us a huge opportunity to increase our business, right, and add another location that ended up being one of the most profitable locations that we had in that decade we ran the company. So that was kind of the big move, which was huge. Like, there was a lot of hiccups. There was a lot of staffing issues. Like, the restaurant industry it's a unique beast.
It's soul-sucking is what it is. It like literally takes your soul.
From the outside looking in, it looks like a fucking nightmare.
It is.
A lot of the industry is drunks, drug users, just kind of like bottom of the barrel type, people that don't have any motivation. It's miserable to work with people like that.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine having employees that you can't really motivate to be better. Not
at all. Yeah. They don't care. And they'll never care about your business, right? They care about how much money they make when they come, and then they go.
Yeah.
So long story short, like, we opened that one. We were running that for a while. Then as the economy started kind of opening up a little bit more, 2011, I believe, was when we opened. We got a line on a location in Seattle, and we opened a Queen Anne location. So that was our third location.
And were these all like the same
brand?
Same brand, same menu. Yep.
Okay.
Everything's exactly the same. The spaces changed a little bit, obviously, based on geography and just how we wanted to style them for the neighborhood that they were in. But so that's when we moved from Whatcom County down to Snohomish County, was in early 2011 when we opened that location.
Okay.
So we moved down here, decided to make this our home. He was commuting and going up to Whatcom County and running those two locations, and I was general manager of the Seattle location.
And so you would be physically on site pretty much every day at
100 to 110 hours a week. Yep.
Super long weeks.
That's a long work week?
100 hours. 108, I think, was the longest I clocked.
How many hours in a week?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Did you ever? Why did I think you had like steakhouses or something?
We sold steaks there. But
oh, you did?
It was like a bar and grill. So they were called a bar and grill.
Yeah, it morphed into this bar and grill concept by 2015. And then in 2015, we went a lot bigger. We did like a Everett location, a Tacoma location, and a Burlington location all in like a year, super fast.
Do you feel like you tried to grow too fast, or were you ready?
Yeah, no.
Yep.
I felt like I was burned out on that industry, and I basically just wanted to grow it as quickly as possible, just for scalability and profitability and everything else. And in retrospect, I mean, it was a stupid idea, but
I'm seeing a reoccurring theme there.
Some of those locations end up being like big producers. Like our Everett location was our number one location and went really well. So,
So then at the top of it, you had what, 6?
We had seven
Seven.
and 425 employees.
Man. Again, like a stress that would just be looming over you. I wouldn't want to be responsible for 425 people's livelihoods.
We didn't want to either. We had a vision of like, if we can get to this and like the amount of we'd kind of this special magic number. Like if we can get to the X amount of revenue with X amount of locations, like we can sell the company.
And then
be out.
And then be out.
Yeah.
With millions.
Go buy a sailboat and disappear.
Well, it felt like entrapment because there was like no way out of the other locations without adding more locations. You know what I mean? Like the only way to get out of this was to go bigger on it, which sounds asinine, but that was literally my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
No, it makes sense. I mean, you're not going to appeal to as many different potential buyers. We got one place up in Linden,
right,
versus a whole Western
we had
Washington
the Boeing market.
takeover.
We had like downtown, the Pacific Science Center, the Space Needle, Fifth Ave Theater. Like we had great locations for traffic. So then it was so we had been working together directly for almost 10 years straight. 06 to well, I guess it was maybe 9 years. And I was so burnt out on the restaurant industry. So burnt out. I had my heart broken daily. Like I'm a people person. I'm a deep empath. Like I vibrate at a pretty high level typically. And being around low vibrations all day, every day, and nobody giving a shit about me or my business or my husband's business or my feeding my kid, like none of it.
Are you talking about like from your staff or employees or both?
Employees.
Or I mean,
Staff,
what about customers?
I mean, customers were great, actually.
They were great? Okay.
But, I mean, being the manager of the Seattle store, there's a ton of just transient clientele, right? Like, with very few repeat customers, because it's 3 hotels across the street.
Yeah, so
then
it's
I've got
whoever's in town.
theaters, and I've got this. It's all travel, right? Which is fine. But, so we had a pretty hard discussion about me leaving the company, and I had an opportunity to go get my CrossFit Level 1 and be hired on as a gym in Mill Creek as a coach there. And at the time, I was excited about the opportunity. I was excited to get out. And little did I know, for us, maritally, like, he was like, you're literally abandoning me. Like, and I didn't know. I don't think we were mature enough to, like, put that into words at the time.
Yeah.
So it was really, like, it created a kind of a wedge. And we lived pretty different lives for the next couple of years that neither of us really recognized. And we were both had good days, but it was really tough.
So then you actually did that, and you CrossFitted and you coached for how long?
5 years, 4 years. Mm-hmm.
There's no money in CrossFit.
0.
CrossFit's a hobby, bro.
It's so much fun. I loved it. Like, it feeds my soul. So I ran the kids. I was a program director for the kids program at Industrious, and I loved it. Like, I did all the programming. I had 2 coaches under me. I created like everything, the schedules. I enrolled, like, it was a blast, but there's absolutely no money in it. I was making $100 a week or whatever, like, it was completely unsustainable.
Unless you own it, right?
Yes. Yeah. So I mean, going through all that, then the big catalyst for us was 2016. That election, as we all remember, was kind of a tumultuous one. Mm-hmm. But in Washington State, that's when they voted in to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour.
I can't wrap my head around that for lots of reasons, right? But primarily, if I want to pay you a shit wage, employees are free to say, fuck you, and go somewhere else.
Yep.
So, I mean, what is your take on it? Do you think that there should be a mandatory minimum?
I don't think there should be.
Absolutely not.
It should be established by the free market.
Yes.
And Washington State is one of only 2 or 3 states in the whole nation where if a server or a bartender makes tips, that doesn't count towards their minimum wage. So the IRS considers that tip, that wage or that tip an income, but the state does not. How stupid is that? Like, it's money they're making. That doesn't make any sense. Now we're going to pay people $15 an hour. They're making $30 an hour in tips.
Yeah.
At least,
it's asinine.
We had cocktail servers, bartenders, literally buying houses and, like, having huge, like, 5-figure savings accounts who were working in our restaurants. And we're literally rolling by, between the 2 of us, the most we ever made was $84,000 in salary for both of us.
We reinvested the vast majority of our income back into our business to grow it at the level we did. So if the company made $400,000 or $500,000, we would literally still just take our $84,000 salary, and the rest got pumped right back in to facilitate the growth of it.
So then, as soon as I remember you guys telling me that new law was passed, you did the math and was like,
it was all him.
Well, it was 50,
that's right. She had already abandoned you.
It was already about, it was just made that point. It was about $50,000 a month. It was going to swing us with 425 employees. And I didn't think that consumers could shift their behavior. Like, you could say, we'll go charge $20 for a fucking cheeseburger, but that doesn't mean the consumer is going to be able to embrace that and actually pay that, or is going to keep going out for that.
Especially in a fucking one moment in time. Like,
right.
Everything just skyrockets.
If you look at traffic data from people that have done that, it shows that when you raise prices that extreme, it literally completely cancels out the price increase because your traffic drops off by a larger factor than what you just increased your prices by. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
And I mean, the free market argument, it's always resonated with me because the free market will correct itself, you would say, right? But then a buddy of mine just articulated something the other day that made me think, and he's like, well, the free market is also why everything's outsourced to China now.
Right.
Yep. And so he goes, if you want to be pure libertarian and pure free market, that's cool, but just know, like, you're going to crush your own country at some point when everything gets outsourced.
Yeah.
So I guess there is some type of government oversight that might be helpful.
Well, like the tariffs that were in place, the previous administration helped immensely. Like it brought manufacturing and it brought so many jobs back to America, because when it now costs more to manufacture it overseas or to hire it out for overseas than it does here, and they're going to invest in the local economy anyways, like that was helpful.
Well, so and why couldn't the government flip that around then? Instead of saying, hey, you have to pay somebody $15 an hour, why couldn't they say, we'll incentivize you to do X, Y, Z?
Yeah.
Like you're saying,
Yep.
like, you're shipping jobs over to China. What if I keep a manufacturing job here and you give me a tax credit for doing that? That way I'm
Yes.
incentivized to do good behavior and you're not penalizing me by telling me how much I have to pay somebody.
Yes.
No, it makes sense. But, do you know who Evan Hafer is? He's the owner of Black Rifle Coffee.
Oh, okay.
So he has these mugs that have or like these ones, the Yeti metal lining that can stay cold forever, right? But they're purchased from China. And so being like a pro-America company and everything's about the veterans and stuff, he's caught a lot of flack for that.
Yeah, I bet.
So he goes, hey, there isn't a United States-based Yeti-style mug manufacturer. They don't exist. And he goes, so I actually priced it out. If I were to try and produce those in the United States, it would take me $20 million to buy a factory, hire a workforce, like bring that technology here, get everything in place. And he goes, and then for it to be profitable, each one of those mugs would have to be $200.
Wow.
And he goes, so do you want
So he's done the math.
Yeah. He goes, so do you, he's a thinker, man. Like, he goes, do you want a Black Rifle mug made in America at a price tag of $200? Because that's what it'll be, right?
Yeah.
And it's weird because we let this happen for so long that now pulling the reins back it almost seems like it's just
Possible.
a daunting task.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Absolutely.
There's actually there's a ghee company called Origin. I don't know if you've heard of these. They brought manufacturing back to the United States. And they don't just they literally they have looms and they weave and they do all of the stuff from the cotton and then the production here in America.
Awesome.
And when they bought those looms, there was one or two in the world that were available, and they were all rusty and they didn't work. And he had to find some 95-year-old man that knew how to run it from back when he was 20 or whatever.
Oh my God, yeah.
And they've slowly but surely brought back manufacturing into the United States when it comes to the textile industry. And now they're making jeans and boots. And, well, I'm sure you know about this because Jocko partnered with them.
How much
Cool.
is one of their geese?
I think $200 or
So it's
something.
not that much more
Yeah,
than
that's
No,
not
it's
bad at
not
all.
that much more.
Yeah.
And so their boots are that much more, though. Because I was listening to a podcast about this, and I was like, that's cool. I'm going to go support them. Because Rogan was talking about how great their boots are. And then I looked, and they're like $300 or $400. I was like, I don't know about that.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah. It's so tough though, because I don't know. I think that outsourcing all of that stuff has really handicapped our country. It's really like you're saying, you've got this generation of people who could do all these things, but they're in their 90s, right?
Yeah.
Who used to be doing these because we were the leaders, right? Coming out of World War II, we were the leaders in the world, and outsourcing all of this for the sake of profit, right? Which we all want. That's the point. That's why we go to work. We want to profit. We want to make money. We want to be wealthy.
Cool.
Absolutely.
It's not this evil thing
Not
that
at
everybody
all.
makes it out to be.
Capitalism is amazing, but at what expense, right? Has that now come to our country?
Yeah.
It's shitty.
And it's not only a financial aspect, but it's a national security concern too.
Yep.
If another country has the ability to just push a button
And
that could completely stop
cripple.
and cripple our
Yes.
economy. And there's lots of goods here that we're not even capable of manufacturing.
Right.
And so,
Well, case in point, they had to get a 95-year-old to come run a rusty loom machine.
yeah. And for you to have your cold drink, you didn't have to pay $200.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when you did the math and you realized hey, this is not sustainable, was it immediate exit strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I am a firm believer in real estate, and I had worked with a lot of real estate agents when I was a developer and builder, and I knew how shitty they were. And that I just thought, hey, if that's the competition and it's a business where we don't have to pay to have the inventory, like we're selling what somebody else is paying for, that is something that sounds pretty interesting. And so I went and got my real estate license, started testing in like November, and by January I was licensed and ready to go. We still had the restaurant company, but we had a pretty capable executive team that was running basically the corporate operations of those stores. And at that point, I just basically stepped back as the CEO of the company. I maintained basically the chairman role, and that was it. And I was just hands off and basically a consultant for the leadership team, and just went all into real estate and got Rachael into it a couple months after that.
Yeah.
And then at what point did you either sell off the restaurants or just...
Was it May 11th or May 17th?
May 11th.
May 11th. So we had a strategy to shut down our Seattle location. It was hemorrhaging like about $30,000 of the $50,000. And we figured if we get rid of that location, the rest will stand on their own. And the only way to do that is via Chapter 11 bankruptcy, because these things are all weaved together, right? So basically file bankruptcy on the whole parent company, pick off this one to save the rest. And that was what our executive team wanted to do. I supported it. I thought it was the best idea as well. Just when you look at the financials, it made a ton of sense. And so we went ahead and moved forward with that. Once we started going through that process, the state of Washington assigned a trustee to the case, and they immediately changed it from a Chapter 11 bankruptcy to a Chapter 7 bankruptcy, which is a liquidation. So it went from a business reorganization that was totally doable to your shutdown. And they literally called me. Was it May 11th you said?
It was May 11th.
Yeah. They called me and they said, hey, we're shutting all your locations down today. And I said, fuck you. You're not shutting down my locations. And my attorney calls me and he goes, hey, Mike, you're about to take something civil and make it criminal. Like they are literally going to throw you in jail if you get in the way of what they're trying to do.
So it's just like a court-ordered fucking shutdown?
State of Washington ordered, yep.
The trustee had a surprising and shocking amount of power. Mm-hmm. So, and it was just done. Like in that minute, I had to call all of the leadership team and tell them exactly what was happening. Half of them were on the call with our attorney, and they heard it firsthand. But it was a crappy day. I mean, it got picked up by like Cairo News. It was front page, everywhere. They showed the news. The media showed up at our house.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yeah, Cairo
they ran
7.
our office, like our office was awesome, and they kind of insulated us and told them to get the hell out of there, but everyone wanted to interview us about it, and we don't want to talk to you about this shit, so.
Well, and so the news cycle, because they got to sell tabloids, they got to sell papers, they got to sell shit, right? So May 12th we wake up, and the trustee had sent handlers into each of the locations, stripped the management of their keys, and literally, like a mob movie, put chains with a big padlock around the front doors.
Well, they froze all the bank accounts too. So the company had about $500,000 in cash, and they had, the company was doing like $60,000 a day in sales. And so there was always a lot of money coming and going from credit card deposits, and they froze everything overnight.
Yeah. So we had zero access to it. We were completely shut out of 100% of all of our business operations.
And you got 400 people expecting to wake up and go to work?
Yeah, and get a paycheck the next week. Yeah, exactly. So we literally, at that point, because we had already closed Seattle.
My blood pressure's going up just listening to the story. I can't imagine.
This was a crappy month. When I look back on my life, like October 2008 and May 2017 were two of the toughest months ever.
Yeah. So, it was... I, at that point, had been in the company, so he really had to talk me into getting back in real estate. I thought he was absolutely nuts, because we had just gone bankrupt 10 years prior, and we're like, oh, let's celebrate the anniversary of the year that we went bankrupt from real estate by getting into real estate. That's a great idea, right?
But the way you're in it now, you don't have a bunch of overhead.
I know. He talked sense into me. It was just PTSD
I'm a hell
talking.
of a sales guy, so I pitched it hard to her. I always tell people the two best sales I ever made was one, convincing Rachael to marry me, and then two was to get her into real estate. So my work is done.
Rest is history or something. But it was May 12th, waking up to the restaurants are all shut down. We're getting calls, texts, emails, nastygrams, Yelp reviews, Google reviews from employees, customers, like people who are just pissed. They wanted their fucking Bellini that morning, Greg. Okay, and we're not open? Like, what the hell, right? So I cried. Like, there was so much emotion wrapped up in it, because I carried the weight and the guilt of 350 people being out of a job. Like, that's 350 families.
Yeah.
That we just told them sorry. And we had no control over whether or not they were going to get paid the next payroll cycle. We had no control over it whatsoever.
So, and maybe I'm just too stupid to connect the dots, but what was the benefit for the state to say no? Because initially you wanted one location to get shut down.
Because the other ones were
and they said, no,
profitable.
we're shutting them all down. Like, as soon as they do that, aren't they going to miss out on more tax revenue? And like,
Right.
what's the incentive for them to make that decision?
There really was no incentive. It was just a complete misjudgment on the trustee's part. She had a very hard time understanding the complexities of that business and how it was structured, and she just made a snap decision to
She
do
didn't
it.
want to deal with it. She
Yeah,
didn't
I
want to
see.
go through the
It
process.
was not an intelligent move at all. I mean, our CFO told her that. I told her that. Our chief operations guy told her that. Like, we had a very viable plan. We didn't want to own it, but we felt committed to seeing the process
Yeah.
through of owning it, to get through that process. And she just wouldn't do it.
And then so the chains were put up.
So, yeah,
and that's
chains
the
were
end
put
of
up.
the Novaks
That's the
restaurant
end of the
experience.
restaurant
I'm
business.
literally, so I had dove in February 1st. I got officially licensed again because I had been licensed early 2000s, right when we met. And so we got licensed again. He got licensed again, and we just kind of like hit the ground running with it. Right, we are like calling, we are doing all the things. We hired a coach. We're doing all these things to build the real estate side of the business. Then when that happened in May, thankfully we were insulated with the brokerage we were at and good people around us. But I was at home Saturday morning. Cairo 7 News rolls up with their van and their big antenna on top, and I've got some anchor with a microphone standing at the front door, knocking, trying to like get me to open the door so they can interview me with the camera in my face. I didn't open
Jonathan Cho from Como News did that to me.
it. Goodness.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd you do to him?
Jonathan.
No, I was fine. I just walked out onto my front porch there and talked to him for a
I
little
hope you were
bit.
in your Ranger panties. That would have
was.
been really good.
I'm surprised on you weren't like, get the fuck off my property.
No, dude, that's kind of what they do. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
he actually he had good energy.
Cool.
But, I've done enough of the bigger media interviews where I've learned, even if they're not trying to spin it a certain way, you give them 15 minutes of your time, and then when you watch it air, there's 30 seconds of sound clips
Yeah.
cut, copy and pasted, and kind of just because everything's just bullet points on mainstream news,
Well, and that's so two things. I didn't have the bandwidth to have a conversation without
Yeah.
completely breaking down at the time. I was 24 hours fresh on this. And number two, they were spitting it because when we filed for the 11 in April, they advised us like, hey, don't pay like the payroll taxes, the DOR, like don't pay any of these state taxes while we're going through this process. And then like at the end, we'll reconcile once you finish, close Seattle, we'll liquidate the assets in that location physically, right? And then pay whatever we need to, we'll catch it up. So because of the kind of revenue that we were doing in that company, our monthly tax bill for the company was between $200,000 and $270,000 a month.
The company was doing about $14 million a year when we closed it.
Okay.
Or when it got closed.
So we file mid-April. This happens second week of May. So their narrative, like their title was company with $400,000 in back taxes lays off 350 unsuspecting people.
Yeah, of course
their narrative.
Yeah, of course
fuck
that's
you.
a narrative.
Yeah. So I was like betrayed, sad, like mourning the loss of a job for all these families I cared about, right? Like I was not in a position to answer to Cairo News.
Yeah.
Like, no, not
And that
today.
fucking person that shows up probably doesn't know the ins and
They're
outs.
just following a story. I
Yeah.
totally get it. But so I didn't answer the door. But when we look back, we were so discombobulated and so like we knew real estate. We know real estate. We love it, right? In that way and what it's able to do and how we're able to help people build wealth. So, coming through from beginning of the year in February when I started and going to May, I think in May was the first month that we closed, 16 properties. Like we helped 16 families that month. And it was just...
That's massive.
It was
It was the
life-changing
first month we made $100,000 in a month. But we were too busy to even realize that. We literally would close a house, throw the check in a file cabinet, and then go back to work. Like we didn't have any accounting, we didn't have any bookkeeping. It was just like pure survival mode. Like sell, close, just throw the check in there. If we need it, we'll go cash it. That's it.
Has anything changed since then?
Oh, God,
Our
yeah.
bookkeeping process is a little bit tighter. Yeah.
Because as far as I understand, it's sell, close.
We've just added some layers of people who we actually keep like current financials and use QuickBooks,
Yeah.
all those things.
Yeah, we didn't
now.
even know those numbers until like October of 2017.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
You know what's bizarre when you think about wealth? You said you made $100,000 in a month, right? And so many people hear that and they just think, wow, I could never do something like that. But then there's a percentage of people that hear that and they're like, if I made $100,000 a month, that'd be the worst month I've had in 5 years. And they'd be pissed about it, right? So that makes you realize that, like, your wealth, more than a dollar amount, is really, like, based on your perspective.
Yeah.
And what your goals are and what your needs are.
Yep. There's absolutely a concept of, like, self-sabotage and self-limiting beliefs when it comes to income, right? Like, we should have and could have done way better throughout our ownership in the restaurant company, like keeping more profits as the owners of the company. But we just wanted to build. And getting back into real estate and seeing these numbers again, like he said, it wasn't until 6 months later that we realized what we had even made or what we even had, because we weren't tracking any of it. We were just closing and helping clients and this and that. So when you get to this point where you're like, oh my, like, not only like, is it possible, but then when you realize it's possible and then you can try to do it. And then when you do it, now you have to deal with, do I deserve it?
Yeah.
And there's a whole different level of like, why me or why us, right? And it's like this, every single level of your mentality has a glass ceiling that you have to go and crush through.
Does it almost feel like you're a version of imposter syndrome?
Absolutely. Imposter
I
syndrome
know
is
she's
so
felt
real.
that quite a bit. I haven't ever felt that way. Like, to me, wealth is a function of mindset, skill set, which comes through experience, and then the ability to take action and be focused.
Implementation.
Like, if you can do those three things, then that's going to directly reflect how much money you're going to make.
See, and that's what's fascinating to me about you, because you've made it happen and then it's fallen apart. And then you've made it happen and it's fallen apart. And now you're making it happen a third time. And I don't think it's going to fall apart this time, right? But a lot of people are stuck in the mindset that I give 40 or 50 hours a week, I get paid this much, my mortgage is this much, and then you live in that constant, perpetual state of being a slave to another corporation or an agency. And I think a lot of people have just accepted that that's my life now.
Yeah.
I can't wrap my head around doing like a job for a certain amount of dollars per hour. Like, that makes my mind just like explode. I feel like I'm just like giving up all of my time and freedom. Like, that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, well, your freedom more than anything.
Yeah.
Right.
And you're making somebody else rich.
Right.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what you're doing outside of like a government position.
Yep.
But even if you're a fucking teller at a grocery store all the way up to their top position, if that's not your store, you're investing your time and energy to make somebody else rich.
100%.
Which is cool if you're a 22-year-old kid or you're 30 or if you're on a path.
Yep.
But I feel like a normal, healthy path for an adult should be in our 40s at least. We should start now looking to somehow create our own business.
Yeah.
And generate our own revenue and our own wealth.
Well, and like you said, like having a path through 20s and 30s and sometimes 40s for people, like that's where you build the skills and gain the experience. And to be able to do, like we had to do that, taking the risks, right? Being the owners. That's why we failed so miserably at it, was because there was no safety net. We weren't working for anybody else who, lost it. And we only just lost a job, like because we had given in, where a lot of people can build those skills and walk along that path, learning all these things secondhand, and then be able to go implement. But like he said, what it comes down to in regards to owning your own thing, owning your time, having your own freedom, it really is, do you bring value in the area with which you're skilled? And do you implement and execute the things to get shit done? Because a lot of people will complain and bitch and moan about work 40, 50 hours a week, I'm just making so-and-so rich. But are you actually willing to do the things? Literally do the things.
Well, that's the
without
problem with
prompting.
that mindset, is that person is just they want to get out and check out for the weekend. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, they're not willing to put the work in on the weekend. They want to just do, Monday through Friday. That's their mindset, 9 to 5. And at 5 o'clock, they're fucking done. They can check out.
Yeah.
They can go basically just drink beer and hang out and be a vegetable all weekend. And then they can come back to the grind Monday morning.
And bitch about it all week.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's just a miserable way to me to live. I realize it works for some people. To me, like, I'd rather
it's
be in
safe.
fucking hell.
Yeah.
It might be miserable, but it's safe.
Sure.
You know what I mean by that? So
Sure.
it's like, I think a lot of humans, and I'm learning this more now than ever, are a lot more risk averse than I thought they would be.
Well, our culture, like our entire country, is based upon a materialistic life, right? And people become slaves to their shit. They become slaves to their stuff. They become slaves to, the work. And they've somehow justified that because I've given somebody else 40 or 50 hours of my time and been paid for those hours, I now deserve a break. How many times do we hear, I deserve this weekend, I deserve to rest and on Monday or Sunday? Like that's not how we operate. Like I don't deserve rest. When I need rest, I take it. Yeah. It's a very different mindset, but it's quite subtle.
I wonder what it is about people that would invest 20 or 30 years of their life. Because in my profession, both the military and law enforcement, one thing you see constantly is people chasing their pension.
Yeah.
I got 4 more years.
Do whatever it takes to
I got 4 more years.
Yeah.
So I hate this, but I'm going to suck it up. And it's like, you're giving away 4 more years of your life to get a pension that's like $2,600 a month or something, which is everybody that retires as a police officer or a veteran coming out of any of the branches of service, they all get another job.
Yeah.
And it's like you've invested all of this time knowing that it's really not going to be that much anyways.
But it's safe.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's comfortable.
But they condition people to that too.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how far down the conspiratorial rabbit hole you want to go, especially with Novak here. I know Rachel will dive deep.
I'll go all day. 90 more minutes.
But yeah, no, they it's like we're conditioned from that as children. And just to be a good little worker bee. And go do whatever.
That's how school is.
But maybe we need that too. What if everybody was Mike Novak and wanted to be at the top?
I mean,
that wouldn't work.
Kill each other.
That wouldn't work either, though, right? So then, when you started your team, tell me about that. Because one of the coolest things that I know about you guys from the outside looking in is your business isn't just about generating revenue. It's about building a successful team, adding value to each other, and growing together. And you guys go to the Jocko events, and you're always on leadership retreats, and you're learning and implementing how to build a strong, successful team. And I think that's probably one of the biggest keys to why you guys are successful now.
I'm a huge fan of coaching. I was coached in the restaurant industry, and I knew I wanted a real estate coach the first day I was in real estate, and that was literally the first thing I spent money on, which sounds kind of crazy, but if you're coached by the right person and they give you the roadmap on how you get from point A to point B quicker and safer and stronger, that's an exchange of value that makes a lot of sense for me. So we started coaching right out of the gates. We did 79 transactions our first year in real estate, just the two of us. We did not build a team because we weren't interested in having employees again after going through that whole restaurant situation. We're just done with it. We just wanted to grind just the two of us and see how much we could get done. But we realized towards the end of that first year that to help a lot of people, we really can't do this 100% on our own. So we started slowly building an admin staff, adding more agents to our team. And then in 2018, what did we do? 200 transactions or something like that?
189.
Yeah. And then we've just been growing it since then. So we have 17 people on our team now. We only have 5 agents. The rest are support staff. So we're a pretty leveraged team. We have 2 or 3 support people for every agent. But that helps our agents sell a lot of homes and have a big impact. The average agent on our team sells about 46 homes a year.
And that's pretty dramatic, right?
So 6
the average
times
agent
the national
sells about
average.
5 a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
5 to 8.
And what was your biggest year?
Personally? Or
personally.
80.
80?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that when you got the Snohomish County award or whatever that was?
That was actually 2020 was less. 2021 was 82, but he's number 2.
Number 2.
What
the heck? Who's number 1? Give me his address.
It's a builder's rep. It shouldn't even count.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember what. You might remember what transaction, because we've dealt with you guys professionally on a couple things now, and someone was. Oh yeah, it was one of Jenny's friends who's an agent, and she's like, "You know Mike Novak?" you become like a legend in the industry, which is cool to see, man.
I don't know how things got that way. It's kind of weird, but I think it's just been the relationships built with a lot of other agents. Like a lot of people think I just, pound people into the sand on negotiating. And I actually just try to build friendships with them and try to figure out how we can get a win-win for our client and their client, to get a deal done.
He's wicked charming, as you know. He's a great salesman.
I've rolled with him before. I don't doubt that you pound people into the sand. You're gonna buy this or else.
No, back to the point about the team though, like we didn't want to start a team, like because of the PTSD from the restaurant. We felt like bringing on a team would be managing people and dealing with their interpersonal issues, and we're kind of done with that. So it was having the right coach to say, no, this is what you do. And we're not bosses, right? We're not people who have a bunch of employees and we tell them what to do every day. Like, we're leaders and we work shoulder to shoulder with every single person on our team. We have an org chart for responsibilities, but everybody is on the same exact level when it comes to like human to human, interpersonal. Like we're no better just because we're revenue generators than the TC who keeps shit together in the transaction and talks our client off a ledge. You know what I mean? Like everybody, it is a true team. Like there are specialties. You are needed in this position because of this particular thing, and you are needed here. And we pass the football off to each other in these different parts of the transaction, and to make sure that the client has a 5-star experience. And we realized we couldn't do that just the two of us, right?
Yeah.
We're calling people, talking to people, showing houses till 8 or 9 p.m. And then I was up for another 2 or 3 hours doing all the paperwork. Like, that's not a very great quality of life with 3 kids.
Yeah.
Right. So.
No, and that makes sense though, because it's like everybody has to fulfill their part in the machine.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And that's a big thing in special operations. A lot of guys in the special operations command get a big ego because they think like we're all that, right? But I remember having those same conversations. Like, if you don't have your mechanics to make sure our vehicles work, we're not going on operations.
Right.
If the cooks aren't here to keep us fed, we're not going on operations. So if you think you're going to make this work without all the stupid pogues, have fun. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Like, it's going to be pretty lonely at the top when you're 100%. Doing everything yourself.
100%. Yes, exactly. And like one of the best things that came out of all that, like our culture will teach you, and teachers will teach you, like, work on your weaknesses, like in the areas that you're weak, work on those to make those stronger. And we're like, no, fuck that. Lean into your strengths. Bring people who are strong in the areas with which you are weak, and you can do 3 or 4 times as much.
Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of the difference of mentality, I think, on our team compared to a lot of other businesses and people, is that like we lean into our strengths and bring people on who complement those with strengths that are our weaknesses. And that's how we're able to help a ton of people.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So in every episode, I have to make some jiu-jitsu analogies.
Sure.
Because if you guys aren't aware, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy.
Oh, yeah.
And for the listeners, both their kids are on my jiu-jitsu team. So that's actually how we initially connected, right?
Yeah. 3 years. Almost, it's over 3 years.
But I tell my students the same thing, because if a dude's like Mike and is big and strong, you'll have people be like, he just uses his strength. Like it's cheating.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, his strength didn't just appear through osmosis. It appeared through fucking years of dedication. Mm-hmm. So I tell my students, I'm like, if you're fast, I wouldn't tell you to not use your speed. Use your speed. Mm-hmm. If you're extremely flexible, use your flexibility. If you're strong, use your strength. Mm-hmm. And if people don't like it, figure out the solution to it.
Right.
And so I guess I have to figure out the solution to your strength on
We'll see you next Wednesday.
But one thing that I wanted to ask you guys, because I get hit up all the time by soldiers and police officers and first responders that want to start over. And they're like, you were able to do that, but there's always a but, right? Because people want to do that, but then they don't feel like they have a skill set or something and the ability to do that. They're like, I would love to do what you did, but I don't have something to fall back on like you did. Like, you had jiu-jitsu. And it's like, that to me is almost like that's the first roadblock you're putting in your own way, because I'd like to start something new, but I'm just not good at anything.
Yeah.
Or
But is just an excuse.
Yeah.
Like 100% excuse.
Yep.
But like for people, and I'm not kidding, that's there's two emails that I get very often. Like the one is, I started jiu-jitsu and this is how it benefited my life. That's my favorite one. I think I showed you one yesterday, right?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
And then the other one is, man, I see you like walked away from law enforcement and it worked out. I would love to do that, but I just don't have any skill sets or anything that I can make money with. And it's like, you guys have now started over 3 times in 3 different industries. Like, what would you say to those people that want to start over, but they just, fear is holding them back? Not trying to put you on the spot or anything.
No, it's like there's huge concepts, and how do we make it succinct? I think you need to be more than okay with being really uncomfortable, because the best results in our experience have been when our backs are against the wall and we have zero safety net.
Yeah, I think having a fallback actually puts you in a more vulnerable position, because you kind of have like a built-in contingency if you're not successful. So I think literally having no option but going through and winning is the best place to be at. Because there's 2 types of people in this world. There's the kind of person that when they have pressure on their shoulders, they just completely crumble. And, you know, if they lose, they just stay on the couch and feel fucking sorry for themselves. And there's the kind of people that come out swinging.
Yeah.
And if that person is going to come out swinging when their back is up against the wall and they don't have $100,000 of savings to live on, if they're not a successful agent, they only have like 20 or 30, they're going to be hitting the ground so much harder and so much more intensely, because winning is their only option. They have no other way through. Yeah. Their commitment will be the highest.
Well, you remember Conor McGregor saying that when he was coming up? There's no plan B.
Right.
That's the best place to be.
That's the best mentality.
You know?
We had no contingency when we went into real estate. Like the restaurant industry, like we knew it was just like literally a ticking time bomb. But that's what propelled us into action.
Yeah.
And when they seized everything, I mean, literally everything. Like we had zero, right? So like, and same thing happened when we went in bankruptcy in 2008. Like our bankruptcy attorney in 2008, rolling into 2009, didn't know that I was pregnant in our first hearing. By the second hearing, when they, accepted it and it went through and all that, we didn't even have $300 to scrounge together to pay off the rest of his bill. And I show up and I'm 7.5 months pregnant, and he's like, I had no idea you guys were pregnant. Because I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to use it as an excuse.
Yeah.
It's our life. It's our business.
I know we're supposed to pay you, but
no, we were like, hey,
I got fucked 7 months ago. And Mike didn't pull out.
No, that was number 3. But anyway,
that's a different story.
We showed up. I think we were able to get like $80, right? That we found and scrounged. I'm talking like, we had the gas to get down there. We had this $80 to give him, and we're like, we know we still owe you $220. Like, I will get it to you in the next couple of weeks. He was like, honestly, don't even worry about it. And that was like the first piece of grace that we had in that. And I don't know, it's stuck with me for the last 11 years, 12 years, because that tiny $220, right? Like, it's not much in the long run at all, but for the position that we were in at the time it was so amazing. So I think, having no safety net, literally nothing, not having an option, the second, like he said, you choose that to be an option, you have a fallback, your excuse is already built. Like, the narrative's already written, so like,
wasn't it Tony Robbins that says, I don't know if you're a Tony Robbins fan or not, if you want to take the beach, burn the boats?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, you're wired the same way I am. Like, you could have left your law enforcement job and you would have found success in something else. Like, you happen to have a passion for jiu-jitsu, but your jiu-jitsu gym wasn't even making money when you left law enforcement. Like, you're literally losing money because you had to focus on it. So, you know what I mean? It's just a hobby basically, but you went all in on it and the results show for it.
No, and it's, I used to go back and forth on that a little bit, because there was a time when I started resenting jiu-jitsu because it was my hobby, it was my passion, and then I tried to use it as a source of income too. And then when jiu-jitsu wasn't providing me with any sort of income, I was like, those people that say do what you love and never work a day in your life can fuck off. Because I'm doing what I love and I can't feed and I'm going in debt and I can't feed my fucking kids.
Yeah.
And it starts to make you resent something that you love. And so there was a period of time when I used to say, or I used to think like, maybe it's actually better to keep your passion and how you produce revenue separately. Because I started to attach the failings of the business to jiu-jitsu. And you know, I'm just coming to this conclusion right now, thinking about it. Like, maybe that was easier than looking in the fucking mirror. You know what I'm saying? And so, but yeah, I mean, in lapping, you know, one of the things you guys said an hour ago or whatever is like, one of the biggest things you did was like surround yourself with the right people.
Yeah.
And I was able to find some people that had very successful academies and bounce ideas off them. And, you know, and it's all the little things.
Yeah.
And lapping and be like, what are you fucking charging for a membership? Are you kidding me? And you don't have an electronic check-in? How do you know who's at your gym? Like, all these little things to him that is just a daily norm at his academy. I wasn't focused on. And then what I noticed is once you tie up all those little, because an electronic check-in to man it, to keep a track on who's training, that doesn't seem like that big of a deal.
Right.
But when you have 20 things that don't seem like that big of a deal, and then you tighten them all up, it's crazy how much smoother everything runs.
Yeah, 100%.
You know?
And Michael will tell you, I totally agree. Like, CrossFit, if I could make the kind of money that we're able to make, and we have the opportunity to make in real estate in CrossFit, there's no question what I'd be doing. Right? Like, I take that all back because CrossFit's really changed in the last 18 months. And HQ, I think, is a dumpster fire firing Dave. But that's a whole different
it's gone
conversation.
mainstream.
So,
yeah, they had all kinds of problems. Glassman said something about George Floyd, and everybody was done.
I was freaking out. Well, then they just fired Dave. Right? And so that's like a whole other... So anyway, but fitness overall, right? Like, that would... If I could pay the bills like I do with real estate, I would love to do that. But I separated and had to separate that is like a passion and a hobby. And this real estate is like what I do professionally, and I really enjoy it. Like, I would say that I love it, like, because I found niches.
Don't look at me.
Yeah, a niche.
Yeah, I think you could say either or.
So one of those in the industry that I'm really naturally good at, because we learn the concept of leaning into our strengths, right? So that's also how we're able to stay in business together, running two separate sides of the business, but they're still one business, and stay married and like each other, is being able to have our own sides of the business that we do. So.
I saw you do a time check. How much time we got?
We're good, man.
We're good? Okay. Do you think it's, and again, this is something that I still kind of go back and forth on. Do you think in order for your business to be successful, you have to have that disciplined approach to all aspects of your life?
I know people that are not disciplined in areas like fitness, but make millions of dollars every year.
Like great big obese fat people?
Yeah.
You see them successful in business?
I do, yeah. So I guess
I
not.
say that like disparagingly.
Well,
because it is
for me, it's all
disparaging,
connected. Like, you know, like I feel like if I'm disciplined in fitness, I'm disciplined in business as well. I can't separate that mentally. I get some people can, I can't. Like to me, it has to be level 10 in all of the areas I choose to interact in. I don't try to do a whole lot of things. Like, that's why I don't do jiu-jitsu anymore, because like it's not something I have the time to commit to do at a super high level. So if I can't do something at a super high level, I don't touch it. I focus on 3 or 4 things I can do at a really high level.
That's probably a good thing to touch on a little bit, because I've been guilty of that, trying to dabble in too many things.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Cam Hanes bow hunts and he runs. I want to do that. I went and bought a bow and I shoot it once every 3 weeks or whatever. And it's like, and then I went and scuba dive for a little bit. So I bought all that stuff, and I haven't been scuba diving in 10 years. And it's like, I'll want to dabble in a lot of different stuff, but what you find is like, you never get really good at anything because you're kind of spreading yourself too thin.
That's exactly right.
There's a quote that really resonated with me about that, and it was a quote by Sharon, and he's a real estate industry guy, big leader, and he said, in the absence of strategy, everything looks like an opportunity, and that's totally true.
Yeah, like it's funny when I reference Andy Stump, now that I know him, I can't remember if it's a conversation or if I heard it on a podcast, you know? But he was saying one day, he's like, because he used to do that wingsuit flying stuff, and he pretty much traded that in for jiu-jitsu. And he goes, no, it was a text message, because I remember reading it. He goes, because I told him, I was like, it was when he got his purple belt. I was like, that was fast, man. And he goes, bro, I'm either full send or no send.
Yeah.
Like, I'm all in with something or I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, like, he got out of wingsuit flying because in that activity, if you're not full send, if you're just in halfway, you're going to get fucking killed.
Yeah, you're going to die.
You're going to die.
Yep.
You know? And he knows, I mean, half of the circle that he ran with is dead now. And he's like, you can't just dabble in shit like that.
Yeah.
But it's a good analogy for really every aspect of life. Because is there a time when dabbling's good? I don't know.
I think dabbling when you don't know what you are and who you stand for is okay.
As I say, when you're a kid, it's probably good, right?
100%.
Yeah, but I think mastery is a little bit of a function of maturity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know?
And like you said, we look at our life and we judge it by what we call the 6 F's, right? So you've got family, friends, fitness, faith, fun, and
Fucking.
I was just,
You were thinking the same thing. I saw it right.
as soon as she said,
that probably didn't
No, he
help.
looked right at me.
as soon as she said the 6th F, I was going to say, isn't there a 7th?
Oh my God. My coach is going to kill us. Oh my God, it's hilarious. But like grade yourself in all of those areas, right? And really you can, and I teach this with our partner training. I teach this with our training and our team. It's like each quarter you really can only have no more than 3 focuses. Right. So in this quarter, I'm going to advance my finances to this goal. And in this quarter, I'm going to focus on making a point to nurture these friendships and my marriage. But like while I'm doing those 3, it's really difficult to like focus on also having fun. You can, but it's ancillary. It's outside. Right. And then next quarter, let's look and like, where do I want to keep my focus this quarter? And what areas do I need to grow and keep the focus in those areas? Because those change and they evolve and they should.
So regardless if there's 6 or 8 or whatever, like
17,
priorities in your life, you're of the mindset that you can only build 3 at a time at any given time.
Build,
You mean improve, right?
Improve. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Maintain is one thing, right?
So like you would literally, and it's interesting hearing you say this because no one would ever articulate this, but in order to grow some of the other F's, sometimes your family is going to be on the back burner a little bit.
That's the seasons of life, man.
That's
Like that's
100%.
definitely been me before. You know, like our family took a huge back seat when we were growing our restaurants. It took a huge back seat when we were getting going in real estate, but it was just a season, you know.
I
We
can
had
tell
to
you
propel
right.
the finances. Like that became a
Yes.
huge focus.
Yeah, we had major financial goals. We had major, business goals in those areas, and we knew what we know about ourselves is like when our fitness falters, our discipline and work falters. So we have to make that a priority if we want to grow, especially in like the finances area, right? So like there was one entire year, maybe 18 months, almost 2 years, where we had 2 full-time nannies, and I didn't see my kids 5 days a week, right? Like I didn't see them at all. I left before they got up in the morning, and I came home after they were put to bed. And we had 2 people that came, amazing girls, of course, that both worked full-time for our family.
You can't say that. Male nannies are just as capable.
I wouldn't trust a male nanny to put my daughters to bed. Let's just put it that way.
I'm not letting a male nanny around my girls.
But like that was the season, and it was hard. Like I would literally be crying on my way home, knowing that like to see my kids, I'm gonna have to go wake them up.
Yeah.
Like that's tough for a mom, right, or any parent.
No, I mean, I would say it's tougher for a mom just because you have that maternal instinct. But even when I was a law enforcement officer down in California, I would be out of the house long before they were awake and pulling in my driveway as they're getting tucked into bed.
Yeah.
And walk up there and give them a kiss goodnight. And it's like, fuck, what am I doing?
Yeah.
You know? But I guess if you're on a trajectory that requires your efforts elsewhere, hopefully if they remember that phase or they are old enough to be cognizant of what's going on, that they'll be mature enough to be like, okay, that was part of the journey, you know?
And they are. Like we've talked a lot about it. We don't hold anything back with our kids. But that season, focusing on the finances and the fitness allowed us to maintain, physically and the stamina that we needed to work 14, 15-hour days, as well as building the finances up to a point where we can now build freedom into our lives and have every Sunday off, and I'm home 3 nights a week, and I only work every other Saturday.
Yeah.
Right. So we knew that season was going to be imperative to get to the life that we wanted, but it was a hard season. And those are the kinds of things that people get so emotional about that they refuse to do and make that sacrifice because they don't want to give up the short term. Right. Like I missed Phoebe's first steps, and my brother-in-law pulled out her first tooth, right, when she lost her first tooth. Like I've missed some things, but are those in the long term of our relationships with our kids and training them how to be good people and getting to know them as their own people, are those really the things that are going to matter when they're 30 and I'm 55?
Yeah, those are kind of just like...
They're ego driven because I wanted to be there for that.
Yep.
But we're creating a better life for
Were
them.
you there for Phoebe's first broken arm?
Sure was. Watched the whole thing. Right in your gym. I saw your eyes last night when the other girl, it was just a sprain.
Oh,
I
it's
heard
just
her
a
wrist.
sprain.
I was like, oh boy. 2.0.
Yeah. No, I walked up to her and I said, look at my wrists. My wrists are as little as yours. I got little bird wrists. I said, and I've sprained them a lot.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure that's what happened.
Yeah, it was. It's just a sprain.
But
You do have small bones.
dude, I have little tiny fucking, although everything, there's silver lining, right? Sometimes I can dig that little like scoop like a shovel right under people's chin and get that choke in a little easier. No, but it's, I mean, the kids at the Jiu-Jitsu Academy getting hurt, that's something that I try and always not give any energy to.
Yeah.
But I have to remember at some point there is the potential for real injuries. So when I say, hey, get up, there's no crying on my mat, stop crying, Like, I guess if their humerus or their femur's broken.
Well,
Elbow
if something's
dislocated.
really wrong like that, you know what I mean? Like, I appreciate that you run it with discipline like
do
that,
too.
There's no room for crying out there. Nobody's going to feel sorry for you in life
and
if
that's
you're
what I tell
fucking
them.
sniveling in the corner about something.
This is what I tell the kids. I said, we're learning to be fighters.
Yeah.
I said, if you get punched in the mouth in a parking lot, do you fall down and start crying? Because
Right.
if you fall down and start crying, you're going to die.
Yep.
You know?
They own you now. Yep. 100%.
But when you were talking about the different F's, the fitness F, it made me think about something like going back to, are there obese people that win in your industry? Mm-hmm. And for me, like where I grew up professionally, both like special operations or in law enforcement, the top of the food chain people are all savages. But that's because that job requires that.
Yeah.
Yeah, your like life is on the line if you don't
so the
have
best
that.
soldiers that I know are like professional athlete level fucking fitness.
Yep.
And so like for me, and maybe that's why I'm biased, and you guys don't have to agree with me because this is your words are going to be heard by thousands, but like fat people like piss me off. They get under my skin because it's like first impression is you don't take care of yourself.
Right.
You're not disciplined. You don't prioritize one of the most important things on the planet, and that's your physical being. So I'm probably not going to be aligned with you.
Yeah.
And so like,
and like I think it kind of gets the wheels turning too. When you look at someone that's really fat, you're just like, where else are you taking shortcuts?
That's
like
what I'm saying.
if I hire
100%.
you to work with me, then can I expect you to take shortcuts too and like lie to me about things and try to hide things like you're hiding eating Doritos at night at home when no one's looking? Because that's where my mind goes.
100%. I listened to a there's this 5 a.m. club that Sharon, our friend Sharon Schwarza runs, and it's basically just like 5 minutes, quick morning huddle, basically of like words of encouragement or a cool quote or inspiration, that kind of thing.
did he write the book you told me to read? Or is that a different guy?
Probably a different guy.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
think
sorry.
Sharon.
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Yeah. So Sharon started this 5 a.m. club, and I listened. There was a realtor on there one time who used to be a really fat guy. And he told the story of how he went on a listing appointment and met with the sweet lady, chatted, sat down. He barely fit in the chair, in our kitchen because he's such a big dude. And she could tell he was uncomfortable. He was uncomfortable. It could obviously, big man trying to sit in this tiny little dining chair. Had a meeting. She said, okay, I'm interviewing a couple other people. I'll call you. Well, she then sent him a text message on accident. It was supposed to be for somebody else.
Oh, no.
And said, I'm not hiring him. He's fat. If he doesn't take care of himself, how's he going to take care of me?
And I chuckle, but that's
boom.
But that's I mean, that's the impression. And when one of the things that Michael and I kind of agreed on when he talked me back into real estate was like, we're going to change this game, because real estate agents before the last maybe year or two have had a really shitty snake oil salesman, used car salesman. No offense to people who used car salesmen, but
unless you're a piece of shit, then fuck you.
But like, the reputation is not good.
Yeah.
Because we're way overpaid for all we do. Right. And so we were absolutely fucking determined to change the stereotype of real estate agents and we're not stuffy. We don't wear pantsuits. I don't wear stilettos. Like, we are real people. We show up as we are. That's number one. Number two, we don't blow smoke. And I will never tell you something that I either can't back up or I can't perform on, period. Right. And same. And we're going to tell it to you straight. We're not going to sit here and tell you and fill you with all these dreams and hopes and then be like, oh, sorry, and then go blame it on the market. Like, we're going to tell you exactly what we're seeing, how we're seeing it, what to do to win, and everything in our control we're going to do. And part of being able to bring that persona to the table and talk to our clients and customers and peers that way is because we're confident in who we are. So we take care of our fitness, and we eat well, and we stay disciplined, and we stick to the schedules that we have, and we go deep on the things that we do and lean into those strengths. And I think that's odd for this industry, because it tends to be, I'm going to be one person on the phone and to my clients, but really I'm over here doing this. And
everybody's already dealt with those agents.
Yeah.
And so that stigma is like, perception is reality. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you off air, but we've had some buying our house in California, like, super kind, like, I'm in your corner, and then as soon as the deal's done, like, fuck you.
Yikes.
Yeah. And we had some big problems. But like you guys, I mean, when did my property close that you helped me out with? A year ago?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still getting little fucking boxes of chocolates and popcorn and shit all the time. It's funny, every time a package comes from your team, Jenny's like, don't they know they don't have to send us stuff? Like, they could take us off their thing. I'm like, no, we'll take popcorn.
Yeah,
take you off.
guys,
All right, well, cool. We're at an hour and 20. And I know you're the busiest man on planet Earth. You got a meeting coming up. Is there anything you guys would like to say in closing? Just like thoughts or ideas that you think would be valuable to people that are trying to either start a business or trying to break that cycle? I know we kind of already touched on that, but
I think leaning into personal development is probably going to be the most important thing for that type of person, and taking ownership for that. Reading, self-educating, aligning with people that are already where you want to be at, building a tribe, of people that are elite and where you want to be also, that are smarter than you. That's the path to actually getting to where you want to be,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, and to play off that exact thing, like, one of the biggest ways that you can have an impact in your own life and the life of your family and the people around you is to know who you are and to use affirmations to remind yourself on the days that you forget, because those happen, and to be grateful, right? To look at everything in the lens of gratitude, right? Like, maybe I'll share. So like once a week, maybe once every other week at minimum, he literally sends me X-rated text messages about how grateful he is for me, right? Like, but just that builds me up. That obviously reminds him, like, we've got this good thing and we're going to be great for it.
Mike Novak.
Oh yeah,
It's
100%.
got to be super X-rated. Okay. And graphic, like very graphic.
But living in that state of gratitude, everything else is abundant, right? Like, when you walk around with a scarcity mentality and you're worried about things that you can't control and you're scared about things you can't control and you're not grateful for the things you already have, like, it sounds so cliche and like very Tony Robbins-esque, right?
Yeah.
But it's so fucking true. Like, it's so true. Like, you show gratefulness, you show gratitude, you preach it, and the more you give it, the more it comes back, right?
For
and
sure.
It's so simple, but that literally is the best thing you can do. So all those people that might be bitching about their 40-hour, 50-hour week job, I get it. Maybe it's a season you need to go through so that you can maybe build a little capital to start something.
Yeah.
Be grateful for the opportunities that it's giving and the skills that you're building in that time, right? Instead of bitching about having to be there. It's a complete mindset shift. That's it.
It's fascinating because you hear winners pretty much coming to the same conclusion, I can't remember. Have you guys seen 14 Peaks yet?
Twice.
Yeah.
Twice.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I know I haven't shut up about 14 Peaks. And
He's such a badass.
I'm going to finish his book today.
It's a great movie.
Yeah.
His book if you guys want to read it.
Is it better?
It's I don't want to say better, but it's just as good.
Cool.
And in the book, he talks about how they put a bunch of oxygen at Camp 4. They staged it ahead of time. And then when they got up there on one of their climbs, it was all gone. He's like, some motherfucker took our oxygen, you know? And so immediately he's mad. He wants to blame who the fuck did this. And he's like, and then I realized, like, on the spot, like, this is a negative mindset that I have, and negativity is encroaching onto my expedition. He goes, so I told myself a different story. And he goes, I said, somebody was in dire need.
Yeah.
Somebody was probably dying, and they needed what we provided for them.
Yeah, and thank God they had put it there.
And he goes, thank God we put it there. We saved somebody.
Yeah.
And like, I'm reading it and I'm like I've never read a book that evoked emotion before. But think about that.
Yeah.
Like, you're at fucking 7,000 meters or whatever they were at, and everything that you've worked so hard for is, there's a big problem now.
Yeah.
And he's like, I could choose to be mad about it, or I could choose to develop a mindset of positivity around it. And then how do we conquer the problem? What is the solution?
Yeah.
And he's like, if I apply positivity, it becomes a solution-based mindset instead of like trying to cast blame on people. And it's like,
so powerful.
I'm excited to
It's
see you
so
climb an
powerful.
8,000 meter peak, bro.
well, dude, I wanted to end with this then, because it sounds like, I mean, we're in the preliminary phases of going to Antarctica.
Right.
But Sheely has talked to the ALE, the Antarctic Logistics and Expedition Center down there, and they said, no one's ever done this before, because only guided trips go to Vincent.
Right.
And they said, but with your resume and your experience, I think we'll be able to make this happen. And so
That's really exciting.
we might get that expedition to Antarctica, and we're shooting for December. But Sheely's like, after that, our next goal should be Choyu.
It's one of his favorite.
Remember that was my
mountains.
email
I know,
address
it was your
for like
favorite
10
mountain.
years.
You
I was
think you're
obsessed
in?
with that
Are you
mountain.
in?
Yeah. I don't think I could get there.
What do you mean you can't get there? What if it's it'd be 2 years away though.
I don't know what I'll be at in 2 years, so maybe.
Damn it! I was hoping to get a hard commitment on the podcast.
You're ballsy.
So I could replay this and haunt you for years to
if
come.
if you're watching the video, then you can see all the muscle that Novak's put on over the last 3 years. So that would be like that's
I will
a
tell
lot
you
of work
that
to get
climbing,
rid of that.
and you know this from the little bit of climbing you've done, that there's no more free feeling in the world than when you're out climbing big mountains, like, you know, out in the middle of Bolivia or Russia or the Alps or whatever. I've never felt as alive as when I was climbing mountains.
Well, and not only like more alive, like I cried the first time I summited Rainier. And Rainier's not even a big mountain by most people's standards, but when you live at sea level and you're not a mountaineer and you just say, let's go do Rainier, not only is it like free, but there's not another activity that tasks your body the way mountaineering does.
Yeah.
You watch those documentaries where they take 2 steps and then they have to breathe for 10 breaths, and then 2 steps, and it's like, I obviously have no idea what that's like, but even at 14,000 feet on Rainier, you're starting to get a taste of that.
Yeah.
And it's
a very
fascinating.
humbling feeling when you summit a big mountain. Like you just feel grateful, one, that it's over, or halfway over at least. And then 2, it's just like, it's just humble. Like you look at this big ass mountain, you just climb this thing that you never could have thought you'd be able to do, you know?
You know, it was Reinhold Messner who said, like, one of the reasons, I don't remember exactly how he articulated it, but he goes, the reason why it's so powerful is because every single thing in your mind and your body is telling you to turn around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This hurts, this sucks. And he says, climbing for me was never fun. Says a guy who climbed all 14 8,000 meter peaks. He goes, but when you have the spirit to say, keep going. That's what's fascinating about mountaineering. Because there's no other animal on planet Earth that purposely continues down a path that could likely lead to your death just to fucking grow your spirit.
Yeah.
I think climbing can teach you a lot of lessons that carry into other areas of your life, just like jiu-jitsu can.
Yeah.
Climbing just a little bit more elongated in how long it takes to do it. Like you're going out for 3 weeks at a time versus, you know, a 6-minute death round or something. You know?
No, for sure. And I kind of want to pivot my fitness goals towards that a little more.
Yeah.
You know, just
you're going to
because
probably have to be like high 180s, low 190s to feel light on your toes climbing
Yeah.
at altitude. Every pound you carry feels so much heavier when you get above 20,000 feet.
And bro, I'm a weight weenie. Like I try and cut weight anywhere that I can. Like I wasn't one of those dudes that could just put 100-pound ruck on and smash Afghanistan. I was like, God, dude, we're at 11,000 feet right now. This is killing me, you know? But
My climbing weight was usually 180, and that's on the heavy side even for climbers. I mean, look at Sheely. What is he, like 165?
I think it's like 170 something right now. But yeah.
Just that kind of like wiry but strong, you know, basically like a lung with legs kind of guy, you know?
Well, that's the
With
goal. Though.
legs.
We're gonna get you back to 180, and we're gonna go climb some big mountains. Rachel didn't pay me to say that. I
No,
promise.
that's only a tight swing there. 80 or 90-pound swing. It'd be fine.
All right, guys. Well, we're gonna wrap it up. I appreciate you guys doing this, and for anyone that has. The internet's weird. There will be people that hear this and want to ask you a question or want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
You guys want to... Are you comfortable putting out your social
Facebook
media?
Messenger is the best way to get a hold of us. Like we talk to a lot of real estate agents and athletes and things like that on social media, so they can definitely Facebook us. We also have a website, meetthenovaks.com, N-O-V-A-K, and you can reach us through there as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
and
we're
I'll,
both.
if you guys are comfortable, I'll put that in the show notes as well, so
Yeah.
people can just click it and contact you if they
Yeah,
need
that'd
to.
be awesome.
And if you don't like the show, don't message me.
Yeah. 100%. I'm on Instagram all the time.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Greg.